Hey guys, the federal government in Canada has just dropped its vaccine mandate for domestic travel and for people who are leaving the country. In other words, if you want to take a flight locally or a train or a bus, or if you want to leave the country, you don't have to have vaccination anymore. And I'm a huge fan of vaccination and believer in vaccination, but I think this is the right decision because I'm an even bigger fan of science, and this is actually following the science. Let me explain. The vaccine remains a very effective tool for protecting the individual, for protecting you from getting severe disease, ending up in hospital, in the ICU, or dying of the virus. What the vaccine is no longer very good at, though, whether you have 2 doses or even if you have 3 doses, if enough time has passed since your 3rd dose, is at protecting others around you from catching the virus from you. And the reason for that is that the virus that we have now with Omicron is sufficiently different than the virus that these vaccines were designed for, that the antibodies you get from the vaccine are just not that effective at protecting you against a mild infection. So people who have vaccination don't have a very different chance anymore of having a mild infection compared to people who are not vaccinated. And the premise for these vaccine passports, for example, for domestic travel, was that we didn't want high-risk people who were not vaccinated and had a higher chance of having the virus and spreading it to one another, to be in that congregate setting, like a poorly ventilated bus or train, where they could easily spread it to one another. So we put these vaccine mandates in place to say, well, you should be vaccinated if you're going to be in that high-risk setting because you have a lower chance of having the virus and spreading it. But that is no longer true. So the premise, the basis for these domestic vaccine passports no longer exists. It's the same reason that you don't have domestic vaccine passports for gyms or restaurants anymore. And there was a real inconsistency in the fact that you could go to a very high-risk setting like a restaurant, take your mask off and have a meal, but you couldn't, for example, not have your vaccine and travel on a bus or a plane within Canada. What I am really happy about is that they maintained the mask mandate because, again, they're following science. We still have a lot of virus in our community, and masks will protect others from catching your droplets if you happen to have the infection, mild case of the infection or asymptomatic infection, and it will also protect you from catching other people's droplets. So that remains a science-based recommendation, and for travel, I continue to recommend that people wear their mask. But if you're worried about traveling because there are no vaccine mandates anymore and you can't be sure if the person next to you is vaccinated or not, the unfortunate reality is whether or not they're vaccinated, your chances of getting the virus from them are pretty similar. So those vaccine mandates weren't doing a lot anymore for protecting you from catching the virus.